Hello and welcome to another episode of Bible Smack. Alright, today we're going on the fourth part of our series on New Testament religion. And what we're doing here is we've kind of developed this out, what's the paradigm when you kind of understand your way of religion with God. And, first of all, we understand things to be biblical. Wow, what does that mean? Well, first, we kind of got to that point, and then we kind of go to the next point, which is to understand that the Bible unfolds itself progressively. So we go through what was called dispensations. Then, as we start to develop things out, we start to understand what is the nature of God's law. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at, we talked about the holiness of the law. Well, let's look at the antithesis. The antithesis is not what we're going to talk about with the church, the bride of Christ, but we're going to build up through the opposite. Okay, we're going to go to the negative, and that would be the great whore. Okay, there's a bride, and there's a whore. Now, the first time we see this kind of instance of whoredom, when was God's people being like a hoe? Well, here's what kind of happened. You see this in Ezekiel chapter 16, and it kind of talks about Jerusalem. I'm not going to go through the whole chapter because we got, several. I want to focus on two other chapters, but basically it says, "Again, the word of the Lord, or Jehovah, came unto me, saying, Son of man, cause Jerusalem to know her abominations." Abominations are things that are nasty and unholy, and basically cannot be in God's presence. They're so filthy, okay? Get that out of here. And he says, "And say, Thus saith the Lord God unto Jerusalem, Thy birth and thy nativity is of the land of Canaan. Thy father was an Amorite, and thy mother was a Hittite." Ooh. No, he didn't. That's right. Daddy's an Amorite, which was kind of like a product of incest. And then a Hittite, which was just, straight up Gentile. Well, then I'm going to skip down to verse 22. And he says, in all thine abominations and thy whoredoms, thou hast not remembered the days of thy youth, when you was naked and bare, and was polluted in thy blood. The symbolism is of Israel as an infant, after being born, just left there on the ground. Okay, just all the amniotic fluid and all that kind of stuff, real nasty. He says, "And it came to pass after all thy wickedness, woe, woe unto thee, saith the Lord God, that thou hast also built unto thee an eminent place, and hast made thee an high place in every street. Thou hast built thy high place at every head of the way, and hast made thy beauty to be abhorred, and hast opened thy feet to every one that has passed by." You can kind of get the symbolism there. "And multiplied thy whoredoms." Now, when it talks about adultery, it's spiritual, so it's talking about idolatry. If you, call yourself someone of God, a follower of Christ, a Christian, and then you turn your back and you're not faithful to God and His Word, then God sees you as nothing but a skank. Alright, just nasty, filthy whore. Okay? So, we got to understand, if we're going to get with God, we're going to understand, let's kind of look at what not to be like. Okay? And that is like this type of girl. Okay? Because we are the bride of Christ. Now, it has a similar passage in Revelation chapter 17. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now, this is symbolic language. It's kind of like a dream or a vision. And so when we say many waters, it's many peoples. Okay, they would see kind of like you'd see a crowd of people, like at a super concert. It's like a sea of people. Okay, that's what this is like when they talk about the sea or the waters. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Just like Israel had been with many of the idols and many of the nations and stuff like that. Now it's talking about this great whore. Okay? It says, made herself drunk with the wine of her fornication. So she's been partying. She's been getting drunk off of this stuff. Okay? Off the ecstasy of cheating on God. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this is the beast. When we look at Daniel, it represents nations, and there were 4 major empires, and now we're up to this new empire, which looks like the 4th beast. The 4th beast is typically interpreted as Rome, and basically now you have this giant government empire beast and a woman who sits on it. Well, as we said, the harlot, just like in Ezekiel, was one who was supposed to be faithful to God. But now it's turning from that, and instead of being faithful to God, this whore is faithful to the beast. Okay? To the one world government, the empire. And she loves it. She loves getting involved in fornicating with the governments. And it says, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in the purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. Now, typically the Roman colors were scarlet and purple. Okay? And gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. Now, I think this is ultimately embodied in what we see today. You know, it depends on how you view Revelation, and I very strongly believe that Revelation is a book about the future. So, as I look at this, it is going to show here, verse 6, it says that I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. So she murders those who are born again. Okay? She was supposed to be faithful to the true God, but she murders those who are saints. Alright? So with this symbolism, with the symbolism of Rome, the symbolism of adultery, okay, with symbolism of, let's see here, of persecution of Christians, it looks to me, and you could argue it with other different bodies, it looks to me to be embodied in the Roman Catholic Church, specifically in the Vatican, because it is the continuation of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, first you had pagan Rome, then you had Constantine, okay, and he took over, and he held that title of Rome, and then the papacy took over the place of Rome, when they introduced to a king in France named Pepin these donations of Constantine. And this document supposedly from St. Peter, that, this is true, and that Constantine had willed that the Pope have that empire. So, to me it looks like the papacy. Alright? People could argue maybe it's Islam, but I just don't see Islam in the idea of fornication. Islam is more of a taking over thing. Islam will probably have a place with the beast. But simply put, we look and put all these things together, and there's so much symbolism in Rome, and I'm going to get to more here. But it says, upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So, you had that empire system in Daniel, starting with Babylon, and then switching over to Persia, switching over to Greece, switching over to Rome, switching over to Constantine with the Holy Roman Empire. As I said, there's definitely a lot of qualities of Babylon with Islam, okay, because that's, where Babylon was, okay. So you can still argue that, but basically, one thing is that with this system, I don't believe it's just the only religion, don't get me wrong. And she interconnects herself with all the other religions, okay? And that's what we see with the Jesuit order, this interconnection with all religions. In 1986, they had Pope John Paul II with all of these religious figures having a day of prayer. Even the Dalai Lama, even though the Dalai Lama doesn't, in a theological sense, pray, he just meditates. Also witch doctors. I mean, they had every religious being there. So all these spiritual entities all together, okay, bonded together, and you think that golden cup, of course, their covenant is through the transubstantiation, and they often do, especially at the Vatican. I've seen them with golden cups. So you see that kind of like interconnectedness, that inner bond, making covenants with those who are not born again. It says, with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. She's an incredibly powerful organization, just amazingly powerful. And it says, and the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her. Okay, so the government carries her. There's a religious entity, and this government carries her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. And the last, this is the beast thou sawest was and is not, ascendeth to the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wander, whose names were not written in the book of life of the foundation of the world, and they that behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Alright, so the woman sits on 7 mountains. Now, if you look up Funk and Wagnall's Encyclopedia or Encyclopedia Britannica, you will find that Rome is called the city that sits on 7 hills. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continueth a short pace, and the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and goeth into perdition. And we'll skip down a little bit, verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, they shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. The beast, that government, will actually turn on the great whore. It will destroy her. So during this time, this is what we call the time of tribulation. The whore of Babylon will be destroyed. Okay, but this is a historical entity. And this mystery of iniquity stays with us today. It says that in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city that reigneth over the kings of the earth. Okay. So, basically, I would argue that the Vatican City has influence over all people of the world, and you can find many people who will argue that. But I'm not as much focused on eschatology right now. I'm focused on how do we relate to God, and when we see this apostasy, how do we, make sure that we're not part of that we're not committing that we're not into that type of idolatry. After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth, and waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. So, what the believer should do is stay away from not only being a member of a group that you feel is the great whore, okay? You know, I mean, there are other people that might say, no, it's Islam, no, it's Judaism, okay? Well, whatever, okay? Stay away, not only from that, but from her philosophy, that need to take over the world. We need to be a humble people. That means we need to be set apart, and set apart from those things that are worldly and satanic. If there is idolatry that does not want to bow its knee to God, we don't hang out with that. Okay? We cannot support, rebellion to God. We cannot support the hatred of God. And we try not to find ourselves in covenant that way. Alright? And what we're seeing right now is there's going to be a nature at any time. Okay, so let's say I'm totally whacked on my eschatology. I don't know when the end times are coming, blah, blah, blah. And of course, I don't know when Jesus is coming. I'll tell you that. That's just the way it is. But if we see this, desire to gain the whole world, stay away from it. Okay? Because you don't want to gain the whole world and lose your only soul. Alright? Is your church trying to be of the world? Is it trying to obtain power? Is your church headed by Jesus Christ? Or is it headed by an organization of men? You just search your own heart. You pray about that. Start reading the Bible. Start comparing it. Okay? And, if you're in leadership, then try to get that church to go in the right direction. And if you're not, look around. Make sure that's the only church you can go to. Because if there's one that's going to follow God, you probably might not want to be, you might want to be in that one. Because you want to get away. Okay, you want to be away from this. In an ethical way, we say that a Christian ought to wait for marriage. Okay. Well, wait for Christ. Don't fornicate your theology. Alright? Don't fornicate your spirituality. Pray to God. Don't pray to anyone else. Don't put your affections. Don't put your religious affections. Do you put religious affections on anyone or anything else? Really search your heart about that. Is it all about Jesus? Or is it all about a music or an experience or friends or a great job? Do you really seek God? Or are you just seeking things? Get away from her. Be chaste. Be holy. Be separate. Be clean. And that's the way you'll have a more blessed life and a less cursed one.